Hi, I'm Anisha Deshmani. I'm a creative producer at Walt Disney Imagineering.
So first, can you talk a little bit about your background in video games and how that played a role in bringing this live action interactive experience to life?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it, actually. So my background is in video games. I worked in as a game designer for a number of years before joining Walt Disney Imagineering. And all of the things that I've worked on at Imagineering have all been sort of interactive projects that are related to, how guests become a part of the story, how they play a role in the outcomes, and that is not more true than on Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser.
And in the past, with a typical attraction, you're talking about minutes of immersion. Now you're literally talking about days of immersion.
Yeah.
That draws directly from the video game world, where you can play 72, 80 hours in a game. How did that type of game design background help you with this?
Yeah, so much of it is thinking about the long experience, right? Like each individual choice that you make, each individual path that you take sort of has to contribute to the overall experience that you're having. And that's, again, very true here on Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. There are sort of pieces of the experience that are sort of, that are self-contained, right? You think about bridge operations training, lightsaber training. Those are sort of scheduled events that take place in a specific time period, but then using those as jumping off points for pieces of the story to set you off on storylines, to set you down specific paths with characters and the choices that you can make in order to sort of make your particular path, that lens that you see this particular storyline through, very personal to you. And so we do that not only through character interactions and the places you choose to spend time on the ship, but also in your Star Wars datapad through the Play Disney Parks app.
So we saw first with Galaxy's Edge, the gamification with Smuggler's Run. Now you just mentioned being on the bridge, even taking a further step with the gamification. Can you talk about that element of having video game gameplay, but like in a real life type scenario?
Yeah, we actually tend not to think of it as video game gameplay, because it is really and truly you are immersed in this world, right? You are actually a passenger on board the Starcruiser, and we treat you like a passenger on board the Starcruiser. You come on board completely neutral, just like everybody else, and then you turn from that passenger into whatever hero you want to be, whatever that storyline that you want to encourage and that storyline that you want to pursue, those relationships you want to build along the way, who you turn into sort of over those 2 days. And so we really try and take a lot of those elements. We take the things like the points and things out of it, right? Because it's really more like an RPG, an adventure game, than it is more like an Atari sort of, the points don't matter for us, right? Because we want you to feel like you had a story that you played, a story that you experienced, a story that you impacted versus, I won.
I still got to see though how many TIE fighters I took out.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, we want to make sure you feel successful, right? No matter what you're doing, whether it is talking to a character or shooting a TIE fighter on the bridge, right? We want to make sure that there's different ways that we communicate success to you as well. And that's you look at the lightsaber training pod, for example, right? That doesn't have any points associated with it, but we still use those game design principles to drive the feeling of success, the feeling of learning, the feeling of proficiency developing over time as you learn a new skill.
And I like the ability, the multiplayer aspect of having the two people behind the person with the lightsaber actually doing something rather than just standing in line.
Right, and that's actually true for our whole experience as well, right? You're on board the ship with many other people, and that turns sort of into an MMO experience of, I know this thing, do you know the same thing, or do you know something different? And we all see this sort of world through our own specific lens based off of what we know and what we've uncovered and what information we've sold to the First Order and what information we've chosen to keep a secret. So when you see these sort of large sort of theatrical moments play out, you can see your individual contributions to those coming into effect as well.
What role has technology, just bigger picture, opened up for you guys? Because, for example, with Smuggler's Run, Unreal Engine was kind of powering that. It looks similar on the Starship when you're looking out the TIE fighters and everything, Unreal again. But what does that open up for you guys to be able to have that suspension of disbelief in real life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, apart from game engine technology, which is obviously, as you mentioned, taken us to brand new places in terms of realism, right? Making sure you feel like you're fully immersed, that we can have these things at huge scale. We've also invented a number of pieces of technology on our end that came through Walt Disney Imagineering research and development that we've started to put in production into this experience so that we can make sure that your story feels connected, right? You go to that bridge training and you bring Chewbacca on board, but that story then continues and follows you throughout the rest of your experience, rather than it being its own self-contained thing as its own separate piece of story. Your story then starts to unfold and continue based off of some pretty complex logic that we've built into this to make sure that not only are we all telling the same story at the same point in time, and that we all know from our performers to the data pad to our operations team what point in the story we're at, but also what you as a particular guest, based off of the choices that you make, what content should be surfaced to you, what is your next step in that mission, and which other missions should we surface based off of what we know you're interested in.
That sounds very complex. It was a lot of fun at the end of the day.
A lot of fun. You know, it's basically a big puzzle, right? We have so many different timelines and flow charts and logic branching trees and all of these things that all sort of play together. They all communicate with each other in ways that we at the Walt Disney Company have never done before. And we really believe that this is going to be a huge disruptor for the travel and immersive theater industry.